Okay, you are live.
I would like to call the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting June 13th, 2022 to order. Let me take roll call.
Supervisor Lewis is not present. Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers.
Here.
Supervisor Lyons.
Here.
And Supervisor Chairman McDaniel is at a medical appointment out of state.
Okay. We'll now have a prayer for the board, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you'd like to join us, please stand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time we have to meet. Lord, guide and direct us in the decisions that we make that they're the best for the county. Lord, we pray for our nation, those that are sick, those that are suffering from other problems. Forgive us our many sins. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You do it quite well under pressure. All righty. We will hold citizens' comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial in to one of the numbers listed in the county on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling by telephone. At this time, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
No. Recognitions and presentations.
I would just like to recognize all staff who participated in the preparation for and the setup and the tear down of the county healthy outdoors day on Saturday. It was very nice at Lake Robertson. In particular, I'd really like to recognize Heidi Hoke. She did an amazing job, pulled it together in a fairly short period of time, and she had a great team assisting her. And it was a really fun day. We had a good turnout, lots of games and healthy food. I was a little concerned that we're having a county health day, and then usually you're eating stuff that may not be as good for you at a cookout, but it was all outstanding and very good for you. So and had lots of games and some staff took some prizes home, and some of the staff that couldn't be there actually won some pretty nice prizes as well.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizen comments? Anybody out there?
Mr. Sladen's going to see if anybody signed up, but I don't think there's going to be.
Signed up.
And online, no attendees. So I did have one comment that was asked to be read into the record. This is from Stephen D. Hart, Cars Creek District. He says, "I'm sorry I cannot be there in person to comment, but like many in our county, I have to work until 5:30 and then head to a hayfield. Using the county's excellent provision of family subdivision of land, my wife and I recently gave two of our sons 2 acres each. Prior to the division, the county assessed our land at just under $4,000 per acre. When we transferred 4 acres, the county assessed value of the land decreased by $18,100. The county total assessed value for the same 4 acres now owned by my sons and their wives is now $79,200. So I lost $18,100 and my sons gained $79,200. Where did the extra $61,100 in valuation come from? It's the same land in the same place with the same zoning owned by the same family. All we did was draw two lines on a map, which we had to pay for. Now miraculously, into the great benefit of the county, $61,100 of land value has appeared out of thin air, and the county has gained an additional $570.63 in tax revenue. I've sat in this room listening to the five of you discuss why housing is so expensive, why our young people leave, and why we can't attract new residents to work in new businesses. This is not a single problem, but rather a problem set. You, as our elected representatives, are not responsible for the entire problem set, but you are responsible for the parts related to taxing, zoning, land transfer, and permits. When I owned these 4 acres, I paid $60 in land tax before agricultural land use reduced it to $15.44. When my sons own it, they pay $586. This part of the housing problem set falls on you. All of our ordinances and regulations should be focused on building community, on building a social and economic frameworks that allow families to cooperate economically, to develop land, to build businesses, to strengthen citizen engagement, and offer a future life for our children in our county. Too many of our current ordinances, policies, and regulations do not support this goal. This error is fatal for our future and must be addressed in any future comprehensive plan. Thank you for your time. Stephen D. Hart, again, of the Carrs Creek District.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have.
All righty. Approval of the May 23rd, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes?
I move to approve as presented.
Okay,
And I'll second it.
all right. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And I vote yes. What am I? Consideration of the county financial package.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Enclosed with your packets is a copy of the appropriation resolution and payment of bills for this month. The total bills amount to $1,577,229.71. We also have a request of that amount of an additional appropriation of $626,030. Those are detailed out in the resolution and in the memo. Please note that some of that is going to be reimbursed by the comp board. For example, the Commonwealth attorney salary, some of the sheriff's salaries. So when you're looking at the resolution, when you see that comp board, we're being reimbursed for that. Also of note is there's $87,195 is to appropriate to pay for the interest on a school debt. There was a timing issue when that was one of the school bonds. And so the interest payment was sooner than expected, but that money will be, the school's carryover to next year will be reduced by $87,195. Our total revenue for this as of May 31st is $45,735,500. Our total expenditures is $44,257,433. So overall, to date, we're up $1,478,067. Staff, not just my staff, but also the auditor, the treasurer's office. We're beginning our first phase of the 2022 audit. And that's going pretty well. And we've also received our second half of the ARPA funds payment of $2,192,270.50. Now that is, as you know, as we discussed, is restricted. And so the Board of Supervisors has made some decisions on it. The Finance Committee will be discussing that further on recommendations for the rest of that expenditure. Overall, some pretty other good news, as you all noticed from the balance sheet, and when you're looking at the revenue reports, we still have about 5 million. As you know, this is as of May 31st. We still have about 5 million in real estate taxes coming due, well, already due. And we're up about $2 million in our other taxes beyond what was budgeted. other taxes being sales tax, lodging tax, the new cigarette and emissions tax. So that's a good sign. And do you have any questions for me?
No. Anybody here? Questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All right. Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Comprehensive plan update. Chris? Here's Chris.
So at the June 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting last Wednesday, staff informed the Planning Commission that we would like to start updating the comprehensive plan. The current comprehensive plan dated 2016 through 2036 was prepared by the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission and the County of Rockbridge Community Development. The comprehensive plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in November of 2016. Per section 15.2, 2223 of the Code of Virginia, the local planning commission shall prepare and recommend a comprehensive plan for the physical development of territory within its jurisdiction, and the Board of Supervisors shall adopt the comprehensive plan for territory under its jurisdiction. Per section 15.02-2230, the comprehensive plan must be updated by the planning commission or reviewed by the planning commission once every 5 years. Essentially, because it was on the planning commission agenda, it gave a very brief update. We felt it'd be beneficial to bring it to the board's attention that we're starting the process of updating comprehensive plan. So essentially, that's what I have for y'all this evening, a very 10,000 square foot, just notifying y'all that we're starting the process.
Great. And the next step in that?
The next step is I've reached out to this. We are anticipating utilizing the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission services. With that being said, I do know with talking with the transportation planner that for whatever reason, we're on the same cycle as just about other locality they work with. And I say that jokingly halfway, but they've gotten a lot of inquiries on assisting localities with comprehensive updates during the same time frame. So it is supposed to be a very public process. So I would anticipate last time we updated it, I wasn't heavily involved with it. Brandy Flint and Sam and the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission, I should say, were essentially heavily involved with the update of it. And we are required to have a public hearing with the Planning Commission. And I'm not even sure we're required a public hearing with the Board of Supervisors. But with that being said, I would anticipate this update with the staff time, that type of thing, to be more of a public process than it had been in 2016.
Have they given you a timeline of when they can begin that process, or are they telling you that they're so backed up that it might be?
Well, I have not had direct conversations. Elizabeth McCarthy, I believe she's back in the office tomorrow, and I think she sort of spearheads the organization of it. And so I would anticipate getting a return phone call tomorrow, the next day from the proper person in Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission.
I did have a conversation with Elizabeth, and this is before she went on vacation, and she gave me that information, which I passed to Chris too, that it's good that we are, and it's not 100% guaranteed that that's the direction we go, but it's going to be a board decision. But she did say it's good that they have it on the radar because they do have other localities that are working on the same thing.
Okay.
And again, the census pushed some things back. You really can't comprehensively do a comprehensive plan until you get the census data.
And that was delayed because of the pandemic, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would anticipate a realistic time frame sometime in 2023, having it come to the Board of Supervisors in 2023. Of course, we will keep each of y'all.
You mean to
updated.
vote on it or to actually begin the process?
To actually vote on it, I would say. I mean, we'll keep you up to date on the process throughout the entire process, but realistically, I would not say that it would a finalized document would come to y'all until that time frame.
Okay.
I would just suggest that we make sure that there are multiple opportunities for public input and that we use as many local people, get them involved as we can.
I would anticipate having 5 public meetings in each magisterial district. I mean, that's really what we did. We updated the land use, we updated the land use chapter in 2003. And so it was a good little stint since a complete overhaul of the comprehensive plan was from the essentially the mid 90s until 2016 was a one comprehensive overall of the entire plan. With that being said, during that same time frame, we updated the land use chapter in 2003. And if I recall correctly, that did include multiple public meetings and one public meeting in each magisterial district. At minimum, that's what I would anticipate. Plus the public process of the planning commission part of the role of the public process of planning commission as well.
All right. Thank you. Chris.
Thank you all.
Consideration to schedule a public hearing for July 25th on voting precinct changes. Spencer.
Yes, this is the final step in the 2021/22 redistricting process. Essentially, the board has really already done the heavy lifting by submitting a redistricting plan to the Attorney General's office, to which we received a notice of no objection, essentially approving the plan submitted. Now, and to ensure that we're complying with the requirement that there be no split precincts, the board needs to adjust 2 areas impacted by the Commonwealth's House of Delegates redistricting plan. In the new plan, Rockbridge is split between House Districts 36 and 37. Specifically, House District 37 now encompasses all of Natural Bridge and the Buffalo districts, the majority of Carrs Creek, and the Goshen precinct of Walkers Creek. And those will be represented by Delegate Terry Austin. The remainder of the Walkers Creek District and a small portion of Carrs Creek District and all of the South River District are fully within House District 36, represented by Delegate Ronnie Campbell, who used to represent the entire county. The VOTEC precinct in this change was split, and as noted, split precincts are prohibited under state election laws. A portion of the current VOTEC precinct in the Carrs Creek District, generally bounded by Furs Mill Road, Maury River Road, and Lone Mill Road, and excluding the Hunters Hill area, must shift to another precinct and polling location in the Carrs Creek District. I had a discussion with Registrar Sheila Hall, and she shared with the Electoral Board, and it was recommended the voters in this district would need to shift to the Highland Bell precinct with the polling location of the Carrs Creek Fire Department. As a result, the VOTEC precinct of the Carrs Creek District would shrink in size and population, and the current polling place of that precinct, Faith Assembly of God Church, would remain the same. These changes would ensure that voters in the VOTEC precinct, as in all county precincts, would see only one ballot upon which to cast their votes. In the past, there were occasions when you'd go in, and if you were had one address, you had to go over to this side of the room, another address, you had to go to that side of the room, and they had 2 different ballots. And so that's no longer an option. In summary, a total of 133 addresses with a census population of 217 people would move from VOTEC to Highland Bell, leaving VOTEC with 502 addresses and 864 people. Now, those numbers don't include registered voters. That's just by census numbers. That's the way we report it. There's one more small area impacted by the Virginia House of Delegates redistricting, and that's in Goshen Pass, separating the Goshen precinct and the Rockbridge Pass precinct. It does not impact any homes, any addresses. It's just a change in the line, small change in the line. But the written description of the precinct boundary was required there because it previously referenced a benchmark along the side of Route 39. So we've made that official change. Maps are included in your package for consideration, and Mr. Sladen has the ability to pull it up if you want to look at the maps. In addition, there's an ordinance which describes the new boundaries in written form. If these changes are acceptable to the board, staff's recommendation is to set public hearing for July 25th and to advertise the ordinance for the required 30 days prior to that public hearing. And I talked with Ms. Hall earlier, and I told her that I could pretty well explain this for you all so she wouldn't have to stay.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Are there any questions or discussion by the board? Is there a motion to direct staff to advertise the ordinance for public hearing at the board's regular meeting on July 25th?
So move.
Second.
All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Consideration of revenue sharing for solar projects. Ms. Huffman.
Madam Chairman, members of the board. I believe it was perhaps last summer when I had some questions from the board regarding taxation of solar projects. And at that time mentioned that the projects that the county had seen thus far were all 5 megawatt or less in size. And at that time, that size of project was exempted from both the taxation of equipment and the generating equipment and lines and other types of apparatus that's required to generate electricity from sunlight. And also a statutory provision that allowed for local governments to impose revenue sharing provisions, exempted the 5 megawatt projects. So that has changed or will change as of July 1. The county will be in a position, the exemption will be removed from previous statute. So as of July 1, the county can impose a revenue sharing type of tax on solar projects that are 5 megawatts or less. It previously also applied and will continue to apply to projects 20 megawatts or more. And then there are some date discrepancies as to what can be taxed, not discrepancies, but standards, provisions that apply for those projects between 5 megawatts and 20 megawatts. It depends on when they gain their interconnection with the public utility, the electrical provider. So
They can be taxed between the 5 and the 20. It's just
some can be. It just depends on the date. So those state code provisions will apply. The county code provision, if adopted, would cover all of them. And then if they are exempted in some way by the state provisions, then that exemption would apply. Currently, there is no longer an exemption for 5 megawatts or less projects. And those are the projects that Rockbridge has been getting and we expect to continue to get. We would not be able to tax or revenue share, impose a revenue share on projects previously approved. It will only be for projects approved after July 1, 2022. Did you have some questions?
Between 6 and 20, you may be able to, or you may not be able to. Is that
Yes, sir.
so? If this project is set out as a 5, can they up it to a 6 and then fall out of the?
The specific provision, if there's not another one out there somewhere, is that 20 megawatts or less as measured by AC generation capacity for which an initial interconnection request form has been filed with the electric utility or regional transmission organization on or before December 31st, 2018. So
The date.
those in between are subject to the revenue sharing, provided they didn't have their connection by December 31, 2018.
Can I, so the rate, is this competitive with other counties? Is this an established rate?
That's,
Where do we get that rate?
that rate is established by the statute. It's the maximum permissible amount.
Okay. So we're proposing to tax at the maximum amount.
Yes, ma'am. That's how I've prepared it. If you, if we advertise for that maximum amount and the board chooses to reduce that amount following public hearing or now for that matter, you can reduce it.
So
You
it
cannot
could say
increase
at
it.
a rate of no greater than 1,400, correct? Because that is the maximum.
That's the maximum.
Is that an annual amount? Is it, or is it based on the total amount of power produced?
The statute actually does not say, but I have interpreted that to be an annual amount.
So if they're projected to be able to do the 5 kilowatts, then it's a flat $7,000 a year. Whether they produce 5 or if they produce 4, I mean, because it's all based on how much sunshine you get on whether it, how much you produce. So the revenue sharing is on the size of the facility, not the amount of power generated.
That's correct. Same question our finance director had.
Great minds think alike.
So it could be, we could use the state and say at a maximum rate of $1,400 per megawatt.
You'd want to say what it definitely is.
But we don't know what it definitely is. We know what the maximum is, and the maximum is
You have to
1,400.
set what it definitely is. You have to set that amount.
Okay.
The only variable would be the size of the project. The rate you have to set.
Right,
You
but
can
we've
set
taken
the
the
rate.
maximum rate. We've chosen the maximum rate that the state allows.
That's
Correct.
what I've included in the proposed ordinance for advertisement.
Okay, and so we could come, if all the other counties around us are doing $700 per megawatt, we can adjust similar to the cigarette tax.
Yes,
is what I'm
ma'am.
saying.
You could do that. You could set the amount lower, but you need to do that when the ordinance is adopted. It's not an annual thing. It goes in the code, what your amount you're imposing will be. Does that answer the
Yeah,
question?
it does. It does. I mean,
So right now, we're looking for a motion to set this
To
for public-
advertise for
for
public
public hearing.
hearing. I had selected the second June meeting as the proposed date for advertisement. However, we no longer have a pending application that this might apply to on July 1. So if the board prefers to postpone it longer or schedule it for, say, the July public hearing date, that would work fine.
what do we have we don't have any examples in this county of anything over 20
We do not.
or over 5. So we have
don't have-
never gotten any revenue share off of any so far.
That's
So we
correct.
don't have a standard for any size in terms of revenue share.
That's correct.
Okay.
Of course, we've never been allowed to and still aren't allowed to till July 1st.
That's correct.
Well, that was on a certain size. On the larger ones you could, but we just don't have any.
Right.
So we don't, I guess what I'm saying is we don't have any examples out there. We don't have, nothing out there, and we don't know in terms of other counties what would be a reasonable or. So you think the rest of the counties are just doing the same thing, adopting the maximum?
I would assume so. The concern has been that solar projects, 5 megawatts or less, were generally, except for real estate tax, exempt from everything. And I believe that has created issues for getting these projects approved in many localities. So this change was made in the last session to try and alleviate some of those concerns.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions?
So it could be Rockbridge County is going to be one of the first localities. Other people might be modeling off of us.
Right. Yeah.
It could be. I have only found,
It's good.
I haven't found any that have been done for. There are a number of localities that have the revenue share provision at the 1,400. But I haven't found any that have been done recently to address this July 1 change with no longer exempting the 5 megawatt or less projects.
Is there any bureaucratic issues or anything? Is this an easily assessed and charged and received? Not like the county decals, I would suppose.
I would assume it's fairly easy, but since it's so new, it's hard to say.
Gentlemen, what would you like to do? Do you want
I'd
wait?
like
Do
to
you
have a
wanna-
public hearing at the next meeting and be ready to go on the 1st of July.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is there a second? All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
Consideration of the loan program for volunteer fire and rescue agencies.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Recently, I received a request from the Glasgow Fire Department, Glasgow Volunteer Fire Department, with assistance for funding for an emergency engine repair that they'd had. After the request was received and speaking with the county administrator, we brought it to the Public Safety Committee. And kind of after some discussion, we realized that there really wasn't a process or a procedure already in place for such a request. We've never had this before. This is kind of the first of its kind. So prior to approving the requests, we kind of developed a procedure to put into policy for a request such as this and any other department that may need some assistance. So with that procedure, the outline of it is a recommendation from staff and the Public Safety Committee for the procedure. Initially was a loan up to $20,000 with a fixed rate, current prime minus 2%, a maximum of 3-year term. Each agency would be permitted one loan at a time, and the mutually agreed upon set payment would be deducted from the annual 4th quarter allotment contribution. With that, we did submit along with the agenda item what that procedure looked like. In addition, some of the things that would be required from the departments would be an explanation or justification for the request, quotes or invoices to show the expense that is needed, or if the department had already paid for it and needed help moving forward. Because sometimes with these types of requests, you have to pay for the pay for the repair before you pick up the apparatus, the ambulance, or what have you from the mechanics there. Once the documentation, and the process would be, once the documentation is received in the fire rescue chief's office, we would present to the volunteer association or the president, depending on the timing. If it was something that was urgent in nature and we were unable to get it to the association meeting, the fire chief could have a conversation with the president of the volunteer association and come up with a recommendation, something to present to the public safety committee. And once presented to the public safety committee with that group approval, and then ultimately take to the board, full board for approval of that procedure. A lot of the requests these days, or a lot of the repairs these days, are very costly with the diesel engines, things like that. So we feel that this is a good procedure. We've never had to go this route before. We have the process is much like the interest reimbursement program that we currently have and have had for some time. But we feel that this is a good procedure to have in place should some of our volunteer fire and rescue agencies need some assistance.
Should we talk about Mr. McDaniel's, what he would,
I think this is appropriate time for that.
okay. Would you like to review
I
that?
can do that.
Okay.
So when Chairman McDaniel, again, who couldn't be here tonight, when he saw this on the agenda, he took a look at it and he had a suggestion that I think was a pretty good suggestion. We're not talking about huge loans here. And the goal was not to make money on the departments in need. It's more to make sure that at least we try to get the taxpayers' dollars interest paid or something along those lines. And so he suggested something very simple. That instead of doing a prime -2, that we just do a one-time fee for the service at an amount of 2% of the loan. So if it was a $20,000 loan, it would be $400, just a one-time fee that you would put onto that loan to be distributed through the loan. And then if it was 10,000, it would be $200. That would be just added to the principal of the loan and paid off in the 3 payments. I thought it was a pretty good idea. It makes it simpler for staff. And he did say, he mentioned a minimum of $200 for any transaction. And I thought that was good. And if that was the case, we would simply add that to the program overview to state that an agency is limited to 1 loan at a time. The max loan amount can be up to $20,000 with a 2% one-time fee to be added to the loan principal and a minimum amount of $200. And then, of course, the rest of it would remain the same up to a 3-year term. Mutually agreed upon said annual payment would be deducted from the 4th quarter allotment contribution for the next 3 years until the loan is satisfied. So it's just trading a fee for interest.
And the mutually agreed upon term could be if the department wanted to take a little bit out of each allotment or all out of the 4th quarter allotment. The 4th quarter allotments are typically have a little more than just a standard quarterly allotment based on performance-based funding, the interest reimbursement program, things like that. So that's kind of what that means.
Okay, I mean,
We would need to change the wording in here a little bit. Right now it says shall be deducted from the 4th quarter. We would change that, but whatever we do would be in memorandum in writing, and it would be deducted from future allotments. So that's not like just a loan from the county. It's actually borrowing against their future allotments.
correct. And I would assume that if for some reason they're not getting an allotment, which we hope that would never happen, that then they're not eligible or they would be eligible. What would happen there?
I would say if, for whatever reason, if they're not getting a current allotment, then they wouldn't be eligible for,
Okay.
that would kind of be vetted through the approval process. So
Okay. So can we go ahead and pass this with you all hammering out the finer points, or would you like to?
I-
You fine with this?
I think it's enough that I think if you are good in the concept, we can finalize this, get the wording just right, and there wouldn't be
Mhm.
what you would say a substantive change other than going to a fee versus.
Mhm. Well, I mean, our objective was always that it was all agencies were treated equally, and then how easy can we make this on everybody? So if this is easier for the staff, I'm 100% for it. So do we have a motion to approve the loan program as amended, if, as you need to amend?
I'll move to approve as amended with a fixed fee and a quarterly payment. Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Now, Madam Chairman, I think this is the appropriate time to take up the request from Glasgow Fire Department.
Okay, sure.
That's actually what started this, and now we have a request from them for an amount less than the $20,000. As we've approved the policy. And this has been approved by the association, and we do have all the documentation.
Yes, sir. I have the documentation here, the letter, the invoices. It has not been to the full association yet. I have talked with President Steve Reese of the association. He recommends moving forward with this. And I have talked with every one of the departments with the exception of Glasgow First Aid Crew. Simply because we've been playing some phone tag there. I hadn't been able to get in touch with the rescue chief, but the consensus is of all the departments that everyone is okay with this request.
And what's the amount of the request?
It's actually $16,301.57.
The way I understand it is once we pass this, that we don't have to approve that. That is it's part of the application process, correct?
Yeah, so the process would be that we would take it for the association to the Public Safety Committee, and then the Public Safety Committee, ultimately the full board would actually approve the amount of the loan
On each individual.
on each individual one.
Good with that. So no motion needed on right now, or
Well, no, I think if you were to do this, I think time was kind of the essence on this one. And
okay.
really what we got into was we had a request. It didn't sound onerous, but we wanted to get it through the board. But then we decided, as you said, we want to treat everybody the same. So we put policy in place, but it gets back to the original request that they needed some funding pretty quickly. My recommendation would be, if you're in support of that, you go ahead and just like you did before, you just approve this subject to the association approval, and then task us with moving ahead in accordance with the revised policy you just adopted.
Bob, is that your motion?
We approve this.
Do we have to say approve it with the addition of? Or are we doing?
Well, the percentage rate, if that was one of the
If we're-
questions, it comes up to the 2% anyway, because
Right.
currently right now we searched if 4% was the prime, so
Right.
that's 2%. So that,
So
I think if,
does the motion need to be approved for whatever the amount plus what, $320?
I would just say-
thereabouts, or plus 2%?
I would just say in
fee.
accordance with the policy the amended policy you just adopted, and then we'll do the calculation.
I'll second it.
Ms. Huffman, is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Second it. Okay, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
thank you all.
All right.
Ashton. That might be what you want from Glasgow.
Railroad Board of Directors we're under appointments, and we still have an opening for the Railroad Board of Directors. If anybody is interested, please contact us. We would love to hear from you. Monthly staff reports. There are no questions or comments. Any questions or comments on the staff reports? You have any, Bob?
No, on that, we have something else later.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments, may I have a motion to accept the monthly staff?
Move to accept.
Second,
All right, Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And I vote yes. There are no, let's see, we've got that one. Board comments. Are there any committee updates or comments by the board?
I have a question for the county attorney or maybe Spencer. The policy that we just approved on paying or the request for repairs, that's a policy. Can that vary from year to year, or I guess certainly can vary from board to board, right?
You'd have to amend. the
You'd have to
policy.
amend it. It's duly adopted by this board. So if a future board wanted to change the policy, they would amend the policy that you'd have adopted.
Any other questions or comments? Reports from the board? All right. If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Could I also remind everyone of the next meeting, which is a joint meeting with the school board on Tuesday, the 21st at 5 o'clock at Maury River Middle School. And there's been a advertisement already gone out. And I just want to remind everyone of that.
Will there be an agenda going out?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Good. Thank you all for coming.